Guys, listen, here we go. This is one I've been really excited about. A dear friend of mine, Ming Liu, who's one of the finest writers in the watch world, and become a dear friend over the years. And I'm really, really pleased we've been able to do it. So thank you so much for coming. For those who don't know you, and I'll be surprised if people out there haven't read your work, because for sure they've encountered some of your work with the FT and others over the years. But give us an idea of what you do, how you got into watches, how you got into jewellery.
Sure. First of all, Justin, thank you so much for having me on here. We did a video, I think, I know exactly 5 years ago, because my son featured in it, my baby son, who's now 5. So it's so nice that you've asked me to come back and to do another film, because it's not my natural medium, because I'm in print. So thank you, firstly.
Pleasure.
So I was on staff with the FT, writing for what is now HTSI, and commissioning pieces, and I was writing about jewellery. I started writing about jewellery, and then just got into watches, and I guess we all know about the kind of horological bug, and you catch it and you get more and more into it. I think because I write for newspapers, it's more of a conducive medium for watches. I think, to be honest, I don't think people want to read 1,000 words on a piece of jewellery unless it's like Elizabeth Taylor's jewellery collection or something. I think watches are easier to write about in longer form with not a lot of I mean, a watch is a watch image, more or less. I mean, that's changed a lot. There's now some beautiful wrist shots and things, but it's easier for me to write about watches than I think to present jewellery in a written form. Can you remember that first watch you wrote about, where they asked you to cover a story on a watch and you produced something? Do you know what, I actually can't remember the actual watch. I think for me, watchmaking is so much about the industry and the people. I can remember like interesting people who I've interviewed and the kind of sort of butterflies you get before you interview them, because they are stars. There's certain like rock stars out there, either watchmakers or even auction houses, or there's people like R.L. Bucks. I was really nervous about interviewing because he's so articulate and charismatic. So it's funny you ask, because I can't remember first watch. I think you kind of start doing like a multi-brand piece about a lot of watches, and then it's sort of surface level, and then you write more and you interview more. And it's funny you should say Aurel, actually, because I've not met him before, but I've seen him at a couple of the shows, and I've always wanted to chat with him. And I actually was watching a video of his, an interview recently, in bed one night. You know you're a proper watch geek when you're watching watch interviews in bed, and I was watching this piece that was produced pretty recently, and I was actually just admiring his watch, because he's wearing an F. Pigeon Elegante, which is a quartz watch, and I was thinking, wow, that's pretty cool for a guy like that to be wearing that. And I was trying to explain it to some watch friends who were like, what are you doing watching Aurel in bed, and why aren't you doing anything else in bed? Who were those first people that you got to interact with? Because I actually distinctly remember myself being thrown in there. Tracy Llewellyn, when I was at Revolution, asked me to go and meet with Mr. Jerome Lambert. Was my first interview I ever did when he was at Mont Blanc, who's now the top guy at Richemont. But do you remember who your first interaction was that you were quite impressed with or nervous about? I remember one of the early ones I remember, because there have been a lot, I think, was Fabrizio from Bulgari. And also he's, I mean, obviously super talented, but also so debonair, best dressed, looks amazing. But so, he's got that Italian flair as well, and I think, and he's a designer, but he was designing cars before, so I was kind of intimidated, because this was really early on, and I came from a jewellery side, so I knew about jewellery, and we were talking about watches, though. I didn't feel like I knew enough about the technical to talk about watches, and there was a moment where, he was talking about Neuchâtel in Switzerland, and he was saying, so Ming, in California, there's Silicon Valley, that's tech, and then watchmaking, and there's Neuchâtel Valley, which is watches. I was like, yeah, I know, I've done my research, but just when you're in it, it's one of those things, I think it's sort of embarrassing, but I do get starstruck when I meet people in the watch world, whether it's a F. Pigeon or an independent watchmaker or a CEO. I do. It's kind of embarrassing, actually. But people must feel that about you as well, because writing for the FT, I mean, I know it's my favourite part of the weekend is when that FT arrives on the doorstep, and I think
I guess with the rise of social and the way things are now, you know, the characters do rise up, not just the makers, not just the CEOs and the designers, but also the characters within the industry. I mean, yeah, be it YouTube, be it wherever it might be, you know, people do feel that, especially with the FT, because the FT is the peak. I mean, it's the gold standard.
Yeah, I mean, I think because I write for other publications as well, I think the FT, it does sort of make everyone stand to attention. And when I do an interview for the FT, I find the subjects are also much more like, this is the FT, and they're very, you know, everyone is just a bit more conscious of what they're presenting and what they're saying. And I think even me as a journalist, I'm definitely more rigorous in what I write about for the FT. You know, I don't just pitch anything to the FT because the readership is intelligent, and like you said, it comes in the weekend and CEOs are reading it, and but I think I always feel like a dying breed in the media world because I'm print. I'm a dinosaur, right? I'm like at my computer typing. Even this feels really new age. But the FT has been, I think there are certain important publications which have, like you said, in the age of digital TikTok, have sort of risen and has more gravitas.
Do you think, Ming, your background in jewellery, because some people would consider, jewellery is not the word I think of when I think of watches, but it is what a lot of people would consider when they think of watches. Do you think it helped you at all? Do you think your passion for jewellery then translated immediately to watches, given the chance to dive a bit deeper into them?
Yeah, certainly, especially amongst watch geeks. I mean, I'm not one to reel off reference numbers. I don't know. I'm always like in the background, sort of like Googling reference numbers, which I think a lot of people do.
Totally. Anyone who you watch on YouTube or Insta, guaranteed has worried about the reference numbers before that meeting or that video, and they're like, oh God, I don't want to be caught out. I don't want to be caught. Have I got that number? They'll say it, the 5625. It's like, have I got that right? I hope so. No one's pulled me up on it. I've got it right. So I don't think you're alone in that. I don't think you're alone in that.
So I think jewellery helps me because I do think watches, especially now, we don't need them. So jewellery, it is for me, it's a style piece. It's a fashion piece. It's it's a piece of men's jewelry or women's jewelry that you wear on your wrist and adorns your wrist and matches your outfit. So I do come to watches anyways in a design piece. I don't write super technical pieces because there's so many other people who can do it much better and don't have to Google reference numbers. Yeah.
As time passes, you know, I think to myself, God, I'm not best suited to actually deliver that, be it photography, be it film, be it writing. I'm like, well, I know where I kind of enjoy producing, and actually that's not within it. So it's really interesting to hear you say that actually you feel the same. You're like, hey, actually the technical stuff, I know that Suzanne Wong and I know that Nick Fawkes and others can actually dive deeper into that, and that's not for me. Really, really interesting. But Ming, we've got you here for a reason.
Yeah.
We've got you here for a reason to talk about two watches that mean something to you.
Yeah.
And you've been kind enough to bring these two beauties. Give us an overview of why you chose these two, and let's dive into the first one.
Yeah. So because I'm a journalist, I love the story, I picked two watches that kind of have a similar theme. Actually, they do have the same theme and they have a story. And so both of them are linked to family. They're linked to important moments in my life, in my family life, which is the Rolex Datejust and a Reverso, a Jaeger Reverso 1 Duetto Moon. So it has two faces. Both of these were either passed down or meant or marked a milestone. So the Rolex was long convoluted story, which I'll go into, but passed down from my grandmother, and the Reverso marked the birth of my first son or first child. But as a watch journalist, I think one of the most interesting things about the watch industry when it comes to women's watches is that we're all buying for ourselves, and this is not representative. I mean, I do have lots of watches that I buy for myself, like this one I bought.
Well, that's
on my
great.
own. Yeah.
I was going to say, but do you think there is a woman's watch and a man's watch now? Because to me, that feels like there's been the lines have absolutely been blurred for the better.
Yeah, I mean, definitely there are watches that are gender fluid, gender neutral. I still think there are predominantly women's watches, which I love and designed for women. I think it's really interesting that more women are buying for themselves, and that's driving this design for women, you know, pushing forward what they really want to wear, as opposed to men choosing it or shrunk it down. But I think that conversation has moved on. I think it's not, I mean, men wear a lot of diamond encrusted small watches. Even the, like you said, Aurel was wearing elegant, which is technically
the quartz
the woman's
watch.
version. Of,
and designed for a woman originally. So you don't think it's just based on shape, size, wrist size. It's actually that there are designs out there that are designed for a feminine wrist, maybe.
Yeah. I think whatever works for you, but I like that there's a feminine conversation. I like that watch designers are like, this is a beautiful, gorgeous, really feminine watch. Whether a man wears it, it's up to him, but I like that they're not trying to make it appeal to
I'm actually toying up. We'll come back to this Rolex. But I'm going through a journey myself. I love the Saxonia Thin from Lange, and they have this gold flux dial, which is not a Venturin, but it looks like a Venturin stone dial, and it's got a real sparkle to it. And I'm having an internal dialogue with myself, like, okay, this is not designed for men or women, I don't think, but I'm trying to get my head around. It's quite sparkly, quite in your face. I personally wouldn't go for a gem set watch or a diamond watch of any kind, but it's really interesting to go through that dialogue. Hey, is this for me or not? And if I saw it on a guy, I'd be like, fantastic. If I saw it on a woman, fantastic. But that internal dialogue is really, really interesting. Tell me, so what did you think when you inherited that then?
When my parents, when they reached their 20th anniversary, they bought matching Rolexes, which was exactly like this watch. I mean, it was a while ago now. They just celebrated 50 years last month. So
I was going to say 20 years is a hell of an achievement.
I know, like,
let alone 50.
Yeah. So I was thinking, oh, that's really long ago, 20 years. So I don't actually remember them buying it, but I do remember them wearing it all the time because my dad has a larger version and then my mom has one. I inherited this from my dad's mom, from my grandmother, which I didn't realize. But when they bought these matching Rolexes 20 years ago, they also bought a third one for my grandmother, which is this one, which I didn't know it existed. And I haven't really asked why they also bought a third one for her. Did my grandfather get one? Was it like maybe they helped them when they got married? I don't know. I never asked. I need to be reminded to ask them. But I remember my parents wear these watches every day, and it's pretty much their only watch. And I just it's like ingrained in my mind. Like my dad has this watch, and it's now 30 years old, and it's all stretched out, and it like hangs really
Was
loose.
his two-tone as well?
Yeah, it's the same. It's like
just
the
larger.
larger version.
And mum's
Without
still...
Yeah, so my mom has diamonds.
Diamonds?
Yeah.
And your dad doesn't?
No, he doesn't have diamonds, But,
God, that's the dream, isn't it? The one watch collection. Your mum and dad have done it for their whole lives. I guess you need you really need something behind it. You need that emotion behind it to make sure. And then, of course, with the Rolex, the thing is you put them on and you can't take them off because they're so nicely
I know, and that's the thing. My parents wore it all the time. My mom just had it on constantly, and she'd be washing dishes or something, and then she'd forget she'd have it, and it would just be lying on the side of the sink with like washing liquid bubbles all over it. But it was just like, and that's Rolex for you. It's so robust. It's so everyday. And I inherited it quite before my grandmother died. So
she gave it to you?
Yeah, she gave it to me, but in my like 20s, in my sort of mid to late 20s. And I was like, oh, I'm not gonna wear it. It's small. You know, I was wearing like a G-Shock. I was wearing like sporty men's watches, and I was like, I'm not gonna wear this. I was like, but it's got diamonds. It's quite cool. It's got diamonds. I'll just keep it in.
Did you think one day you might come around to it? Did you think, hey, this isn't for me now? But
I didn't until I started getting really into the watch world, I think.
Yeah.
I think I see so many watches. You know, we go to Watches and Wonders and we have like 50 appointments. And something about when you go into that Rolex appointment, I mean, these are, superiorly made watches, the quality. Like I said, they would just be lying on the side of the sink with washing up liquid bubbles all over it, and my mom would just put it back on and she'd get on with the day.
You know, it's funny. My mum had the same watch, not the diamond markers, but again, I can vividly remember she'd be in the garden in a swimming trunks, trimming trees, wearing it. Then she'd be at an office meeting, and then she'd be having a shower, still wearing it. You know, everything was. You know, it was like nothing stopped them wearing it, and it still worked. I don't think she ever had it serviced either. I don't think she ever needed to have it serviced. It sort of just kept going.
And it's such an elegant, timeless piece. I mean, it's not very valuable, you know, it's a small piece, but it's the most, for me, it's the most valuable watch I have, and anybody watching this, if you want to like mug me or rob me or bring it to my house, just do not take this one, because this is the one I would be most
upset about,
because it's linked to my family, to my parents, to obviously a symbol of love and
Yeah.
marriage, but my grandmother as well. And I need to find out why they have a third one.
Do you wear it now?
I do wear it a lot. I
you?
kind of stack it now. I think maybe I wear it with other bracelets
and
because I
things.
feel because it's so small. Now it's small. I mean, now small watches are coming back, but
I was going to say that to me, I feel like I've seen a lot of guys wearing that sort of size right now.
Really?
It's a bit of a statement piece, you know?
Yeah.
Smaller, and you push the envelope and go really small.
yeah, exactly.
I'm impressed to see this, Ming, because I have to say, you know, I'm a fan of the icons, and to me, when I think of watchmaking icons, and obviously JLC, there's only one watch, really.
Yeah.
When did you get this? So this was to mark
so this was
the birth.
to mark the birth of my son, which was my first child as well. So, and I think a Reverso is, like you said, it's an icon watch. It's one of those watches that you read about all the time, and I think it's interesting for me because as a watch journalist, I'm always writing about watches, and you sort of write all these things like it's an icon watch and it's legible and it's readable and it's a graphic face, but you don't really know what it means, you know, until you actually wear it. So I wore this watch a lot because it was new right after my son was born. I loved it and it was exciting, and you've just had a baby, well, you have a very young baby, and you know that when you become a parent, I mean, time is redefined completely. It's compressed, it's long, it's short, it's this, everything you know about timekeeping is thrown out the window. And I wore this watch a lot, and it does have that graphic face, that Art Deco legibility. And
particularly this one, interestingly.
Do you think so? Yeah,
because it has
more
this 3D, I mean, it's framed, internally framed, which is lovely. I've actually not seen that before, but it has this real 3D effect to it. Not only because the dial has that sort of guilloche finish, but it really does spring from the dial.
That
at least that
sunray
side,
effect.
anyway.
Yeah. And then, so that is...
It's an adventuring stone dial.
Yeah.
There it is, wow, stone
Yeah.
dial. Talking of adventuring, that is beautiful. And I've got to say, some of my favourite Reversos are stone dial. Wow,
and
really, really lovely.
Phase, and
it's beautiful.
Really great for traveling. I travel a lot for work. There's always smart events, and you just bring that watch, and you can wear it for the whole trip.
And the mother of pearl moon as well is just a lovely touch.
Yeah.
There's something really quite dreamlike about that dial. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
Absolutely beautiful. I love the extended markers, how they fully extend to the perimeter. Really
and
beautiful.
I think a two-phase dial, you know, my husband's like, if we have another one, you know, it's kind of done. It's a, you know,
So
I
this
mean,
is
it
the double.
wasn't. Yeah, I mean, Julian's watching this. You're going to get something as well. And this marks Alexander's, but you will get something. But I think that's kind of the joke as well, that, you can always kind of double up as a memento. But yeah.
Why did you choose this reference? Because
So,
presumably...
do you know what? It's really funny. I walked into the store, I was like, I'm definitely going to pick a classic. I don't know, nothing, it just goes to show you have to try on watches. Might have something in your mind. I knew I wanted a Reverso. That was, I think, it's just not a watch that, I don't know, I feel like it had marked something because it's an icon. And lots of people do buy them to mark important milestones. And weirdly, this is it's elongated, and it fit more than the one I'd originally wanted. Yeah,
really?
And it's weird because I have quite small wrists, so I was like, it's going to be too long, but it works. It just looks right and it feels right.
It's really interesting, and I couldn't agree more that you've got to try watches on. As much as I love a video and I love photos, it just doesn't do it justice, because you have to feel right with it. You've got to connect with it, and it's got to work with you.
Yeah.
Like for me, the Reverso, actually, the tribute case size is the perfect case size for me. I think sometimes you can get overexcited by what you think might work, but when you try it on, you're like, hey, just wait, that doesn't work at all.
Exactly. Yeah. So it was a surprise, and I knew I wanted a dual phase, just kind of more bang for your buck kind of thing. And also, if you're going to wear it forever, you might as well go. And I wanted a complication.
Steel case?
Yes. Yeah.
It's lovely.
And the strap's original.
And the strap's original as well, I can see, beautiful. And I can see you've worn it, which is even nicer, because it just tells that story.
Well, I think when you're, that I was saying about having such a graphic face, when you have a young baby, you're checking your watch a lot, because I think before you're checking your phone, you don't realize, and I banged it up on so many door handles, and
you're checking how long's that sleep.
Yeah, exactly. Or like, no, give me 5 more minutes.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's definitely, worn. So
it's absolutely brilliant. And I have to ask, is there anything you've got your eye on for the future? I mean, do you struggle like me, where every week
or actual affordable? Because an RM for me, like Richard Mille,
really?
For me, yes, of course. It's just so different, and so, I mean, I just think what they do. They've got this new sports watch, which I love. I mean, it's just a totally out there brand.
The coloured sort of
the 07, 04. Is that right? See, I'm like checking, is that right?
Someone please comment underneath and tell us if that's right. Yeah. But it's the colourful sort of matte ceramic coloured finishes, right? I actually did love that. I'm not a huge RM fan off the bat, but I love that colourway, and I was like, oh. And I know that was kind of designed for men, but ultimately there was a guy wearing it at on the runway the other day.
That's right, at the Met Gala. I think because I've done classic now. Even this is, it's a classic round watch, sporty. So I've got a sport watch. I think, that would be, the watch I have my eye on, but I can't. There's so many great watches. It's the problem, as you know, of what we do. We just see so many great things.
It gets me into so much trouble, Ming. Honestly, this could be a therapy session for the next time. Is that basically I've put myself in a financial hole because every week you get yourself excited about something new. And because I think it's a double-edged sword for us, because you get to spend time with watches, you get to experience them, you get to write about them. For me, I don't know if you find this about writing of them, but for me, if I photograph them, I feel that sense of ownership in some way, and then I give them back, and I'm like, hey, I had that moment with it. Yeah. That's cool. Like I took something from it. But then, of course, you say, hey, no more, and then you're like, no, there's just one more, one more. And that just keeps going. So
also, it's an industry based on newness. So it's not even every year now. Every few months, we're bombarded with something new, and you can come into watchmaking in so many ways: a vintage way, a design way, a technical way. You're just like, just tick all those boxes.
Ming, thank you so much. We'll have to do it again and talk about that, and then talk about the Richelieu when it comes in.
Yeah, exactly.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Justin. It's a lot of fun.
Cheers, guys.